So if you look at the overall scheme of things of reaching up to the moon, I think we have perfected it already. We have done it one time in Chandrayaan 1, second time in Chandrayaan 2, also did it in Mars orbiter mission. There were issues in terms of the approaches that was taken, how to correct the engine thrust dispersion by accumulating errors over a period of time, artificially limiting the ability of the vehicle to take turns and correction, and the ability to calculate time to reach the required spot. In nutshell, if you tell what was the problem in Chandrayaan 2, it is simple to say that the ability to handle parameter variation or dispersion was very limited. So what we did this time is simply expand that further. So we, instead of success-based design in Chandrayaan 2, we are doing a failure-based design in Chandrayaan 3. What all can fail and how to protect it. So this is the approach that we have taken. Wanted to know about the issues that we faced during Chandrayaan 2 and how we have circumvented or solved those issues in Chandrayaan 3. Right. See, Chandrayaan 2 was hugely very good until its last phase of its landing, where we could not achieve the soft landing. It landed with a higher velocity. So that we call it as crash landing. So if you look at the overall scheme of things of reaching up to the moon, I think we have perfected it already. We have done it one time in Chandrayaan 1, second time in Chandrayaan 2, also did it in Mars orbiter mission, so there is no ambiguity. But and capturing the moon orbit as well as reducing it to 100-kilometer orbit was also perfect. And we were trying to target a landing in a particular spot closer to the South Pole, that is 70 degrees to the South Pole. And in that doing so, we faced certain challenges. The primary issues were one, that we had an engine. There were 5 engines which was used for giving the reduction of the velocity. It's called the retardation. These engines developed little higher thrust than that was expected. It was on the higher side, but it was still within the specifications. But when such a higher thrust was happening, the errors on account of this differential was accumulated over some period. It was called a camera coasting phase on the last phase of it. During this time, the craft is supposed to be very steady to take pictures. So we can correct it at that time. So because of that period where it was not corrected, we started correcting only at the end of it. When all the errors got accumulated, which was slightly higher than what we expected, the craft had to make very fast turns. And when it started turning very fast, its ability to turn was limited by the software, because we never expected such high rates to come. So this was the second issue. The third issue is it is yet to reach a landing point which is still far away. And we asked the craft to land only in 500 meter by 500 meter area. And the craft is trying to reach there by increasing velocity to reach there, whereas it was not having enough time to, it was almost close to the ground. So there was a contradictory requirement of reaching to the exact spot and at the same time achieving a low velocity. It became mathematically difficult for it to do it in the available time. So finally, when it actually did it, it fell short of almost half a kilometer, and the velocity of touch was higher. So it is fundamentally, there were issues in terms of the approaches that was taken, how to correct the engine thrust dispersion by accumulating errors over a period of time, artificially limiting the ability of the vehicle to take turns and correction, and the ability to calculate time to reach the required spot, and also telling to land at the exact required spot instead of landing wherever you can safely land. So we found that we need to study this in greater detail to understand that we must give more flexibility to the craft to handle dispersions, essentially. So in nutshell, if you tell what was the problem in Chandrayaan 2, it is simple to say that the ability to handle parameter variation or dispersion was very limited. So what we did this time is simply expand that further. Look at what are things that can go wrong. So we, instead of success-based design in Chandrayaan 2, we are doing a failure-based design in Chandrayaan 3. What all can fail and how to protect it. So this is the approach that we have taken. So for that we did many things. One, we expanded the area of landing half a kilometer by half a kilometer to 4 kilometer by 2.5 kilometer. 4 kilometer along the track and 2.5 kilometer width. Anywhere it can land. So it doesn't limit you to target a specific point. It will target a specific point only in nominal conditions.
4 by 2.5.
4 kilometer by 2.5 kilometer. Suppose the performance is poor, it can land anywhere within that area. Second method is that we gave more fuel so that it has more capability to travel or handle dispersions or move to an alternate landing site. So this is the second approach. Then we looked at very many failures: sensor failure, engine failure, the algorithm failure, calculation failure, even whatever may fail, nothing is there, still we wanted it to land at the required speed and rate. So there are different failure scenarios calculated and programmed inside. And there is one benefit from Chandrayaan 2, that Chandrayaan 2 had a very high resolution camera on board. It's called orbital high resolution camera. This camera gave very good pictures, almost 28 centimeter high resolution image of the entire moon. With that, we were able to find out the landing site much better way than last time. Last time we were taking images from the lander and then analyzing in ground and telling how to do the landing. This time we already know the details of the landing site, the boulders, the craters, everything is well mapped. And it's already programmed into the lander. So it knows where it exactly. Once you take an image, it will compare with the stored image and say I am already there. So it can exactly know the coordinates where to land. Only thing it has to see final corrections, that is called any boulders or crater which are bigger than 30 centimeter it will look for and then land safely. So that's the only thing required this time. And we added other failure modes. There are plenty of failure modes in this. It's not just soft landing. After landing, if it doesn't generate power, there is a danger. It will not work. So it has to face sun. So if it doesn't face sun, what will happen? We asked this question. So we created additional solar panels on other surfaces. Then we asked if it lands with higher velocity, what will happen? Can it not land? Then we increase the vertical velocity component from 2 meter per second to 3 meter per second and tested it totally. Then we wanted to find out what all electronics interference with the propulsion. So we tested the craft with the full integrated thing in different scenarios and found certain issues also there and corrected all of them. Like electronics and the propulsion will have created vibration, sensitivity, things like that. So all these are settled. Then we did elaborate testing using helicopter flying over terrains. We had cranes which will test the landing processes. Then we did new test beds of simulation, which was not there last time, especially to look at failure scenarios. We put hardwares, electronic sensors all together and simulate the initial parameters which will be widely dispersing, like thrust going upper bound, beyond upper bound. We call it 3 sigma to 6 sigma. Sigma means it is a standard deviation in a dispersion case. So generally we say that generally things go up to 3 sigma, but dispersion was given up to 6 sigma, almost double of that in terms of standard deviation. Still see the landing happens perfectly. Then we created scenarios of some items not working, something not there, etc., etc. Still it should land somehow. So this is approach we have taken this time.
But payload-wise, C2 and C3 are more or less same. Okay, payload scientific objectives.
It is not the same. The last time we had an orbiter which had the payloads. This time the orbiter doesn't have any of those payloads because it is already up there. We added only an additional different payload this time in the orbiter, whereas lander and rover has the same payloads.
This time you have scientific objective remains same. Scientific objectives remain same for C3.
Of course, the scientific objective of the orbiter was already met. So what was not met was the scientific objective of the lander and the rover. That will be this time.
So this time you have cut the cost of the mission as well compared to Chandrayaan 2.
The mission cost is almost the same because it cannot be cut that drastically, because the only thing is the scientific instruments on the orbiter is not there. So the cost corresponding to that would be lesser.
What will this land rover, lunar rover do? What kind of experiments do we expect, and what is the duration, what is the life of that lander?
The rover is supposed to do soft landing first. After that, it is supposed to study 2 important items of the moon, which is still not studied. Studying the moon, we can study by remote sensing. That is what you do in an orbit, like studying Earth using remote sensing. Second is called in situ evaluation. Go there and study by the. So there, what is there to go there and study? One is its surface. That is a regolith. The first is to study the constituent elements that are made of the regolith. So this is one study, and for that we have 2 different instruments. Second is we are looking at the very short distance, the atmospheric characteristic. We know that moon doesn't have an atmosphere, but it is not true in exact sense, because gases do come out of it and they get ionized and they stay in the very close proximity of the surface, and this changes with the day and night. So we want to study in day and night how this small atmosphere, very atomic atmosphere, which is charged particle, are varying. So this is a very interesting thing. Second is we want to find out what is the that regolith has electrical characteristics and thermal characteristics. So what we do is we pierce a probe into the sand, or sand, so-called regolith, it can't call it sand, and then pass certain electrical current and measure its conductivity and electrical characteristics. This up to 10 centimeter depth. Then we drop an instrument on the surface and measure the vibration, or the what you call as the earthquake behavior, or the internal processes. Suppose there are some movements happening there, etc., can also be measured by very high sensitive accelerometers. So, and then of course the rover does that atomic evaluation by two instruments. One is a laser based melting of the subject, creating in gases, and then do studying spectroscopically. And another is by giving a certain alpha particles on the surface and creating emissions from the materials, and also studying the chemical composition. So these are the experiments which we are looking at.
So when it comes to moon, what are the steps that India is planning in the next few years with the whole world exploring the lunar economy?
So let us see how Chandrayaan 3 goes, and after that we will work out. But currently we have plans to work together with Japan on a moon mission, which is still not finalized. We are in the formal technical discussion where they want to land a lander, and we are to develop the rest of the capability and want to look at scientific objectives more closely. So we are discussing the scientific part of it now. But more missions will be based on what exactly new we want to find out scientifically. That is still under discussion.
That will be Chandrayaan 4 in Japan.
I don't know. We will have to decide, because something which is not announced, I can't name it.
And what is the duration of this mission life of Chandrayaan 3?
Chandrayaan 3 can last only one moon day.
Okay.
One moon day is 14 days.
14 days.
14 so when the sun rises and sun sets, will be the power generation capability. Beyond that, night will come. The temperature will drop very drastically down there, and possibility of system surviving those 15 days of night time has to be seen. If it survives and next day when the batteries charge up, possibly it can extend its life. We will have to see that.
So could you give us an elaborate idea about how much time it will take, and roughly what is the duration of landing that we could target?
From launch to landing.
No, launch takes place on, if the launch takes place on 14th as planned, then we can land it in the window which starts from 23rd of August to say another 15 days. But we may not land at exactly on the dawn of that, because power generation will be lesser. So sun has to rise up to some height to generate sufficient power. So maybe 23, 24, 25, 26, any of those days we can land. So, and then do the experiment. August.
And if we miss the launch window this time, what is the duration that we can still target till?
Launch window? Yes. Launch window is 2:35 p.m. exact. It has to happen then. If it doesn't happen, some other day it will happen. Huh? I'm not going to look at all the possibility to you, but we have our own backup.
सर मौसम कितना मायने रखेगा, खास तौर पे जब बारिश का समय है, मानसून है, ऐसे में मौसम कितना महत्वपूर्ण रहेगा, और उसको मद्देनजर रखते हुए क्या तैयारी है?
See, we have a very good meteorological prediction capability at Sriharikota itself. So we have a wind measurement radar, we have lightning measurements, we have tropical radars measuring it, and we have information from various sources. And we have an expert team who is ISRO team supported by IMD in the station at Sriharikota, looking at all the weather possibilities till 14th. I am assured that till 14th we have no issue based on the long-term prediction. But the sky will be overcast, cloud will be there, drizzle is there. Even now it is raining. So that will happen. No issue for the launch.
So you mentioned about transferring SSLV to the industry in your speech. Why is the need to transfer, and is it, I mean, aren't you transferring it too fast? Just 2 development flights and...
So what do you suggest? Go slow? Okay. If you suggest go slow, I may go, but then the whole demand...
What is the roadmap that you have?
No, that's roadmap only is what is announced, that we are going to do the technology transfer of SSLV to industry. It's a declaration that we are given even before we started SSLV development. You have to understand that the principle of SSLV development is currently there is no industry at that point in time to develop small rockets in India. We started that program, and we want to help industry to do it. And we took up the development with us, and we've completed in about 4 years. In fact, we wanted to be done in 2.5 years of time, but because of COVID, it took 4 years of time, and we faced one failure also. So now that is developed and launched successfully, we want to honor our what originally we told. It is not developed for ISRO, because ISRO has no interest to develop small satellite rocket and compete with anybody. We have no interest. Our interest is to help the industries to have this small satellite launch capability, which is happening in private industry.
Do like and subscribe to my channel for more interesting videos.